So I just got done with Ridley Scott's Prometheus, and I've been putting it off because I've been dreading even taking a look. Because I do love Ridley Scott, I do like most of his films. He's a very innovative and creative director. And while I disagree with him on several key films and some of the decisions he makes, I do think he's one of the best directors out there. So I was expecting a lot, and it was very, very disappointing. But I will say it was not as boring or as stupid or as frustrating as I thought it would be. So I'll give him that much. But this is a very, very mixed, messy kind of film. So what is going on with Prometheus? Well, essentially, and again, it's implicit, it's never explicit. This is essentially a prequel to the Alien movie, the first one. Basically, we're getting a lot of backstory in terms of how the xenomorph emerged and how the interaction between the humans and the xenomorph even happened. What we're getting here is Ridley Scott's kind of conjectural history of humanity. And in his version, essentially what happened is these alien creatures called engineers landed on Earth and created humanity. Humanity, after thousands of years, gathers all these signs from all over the world, from Native American, Celtic, all these signs, symbols, relics, artifacts, and somehow they've constructed that, yes, these engineers visited us. We're speculating. We don't know. Maybe these alien visits did happen. Maybe they didn't. Ridley is saying they did happen, and the story is now we're going to go seek these engineers out. But of course, there's some twists and turns, and a lot of battles and action scenes occur. There's a lot of horror imagery. But does it come together? The answer is no. So let's say the good stuff first. There's a lot that's very impressive. The music is really good. The creature design is amazing. The suits look incredible. When we see the engineer, I didn't like the engineer myself or the design, but I'm sure a lot of people will be very impressed. So a lot of the designs are amazing. Production design is excellent. It looks really fantastic. So just from a visual angle, I would recommend it because there's a lot of brilliant visual moments. And I do think he's sincerely trying to give a very different story from Alien. So they don't copy Alien at all. They do give a very different story. So it is a very creative attempt, but I think it's a failure. So that's the good stuff. What's the bad stuff? Well, there are a few good characters, and some of the acting is very excellent, especially by Idris Elba and some of the minor characters. But really, the main characters, David and the Charlize Theron character, and I can't give away the other major characters because that's a twist, because we think they're only going to be a minor part of the story, but they turn out to be a major part of the story. I just didn't care about them, honestly. I found them very disengaging. I honestly didn't care about their fate at all. Now, I will say with Shaw, people are going to go all over the place with her. I really didn't care about her, but I will say by the halfway point, I do become invested in her surviving. She does emerge as a much more of a personality, but I'll be honest, for most of the film, she just feels like a Ripley ripoff and kind of a faded version. But I do think the acting with her was good towards the end, so I say the first third with her is pointless, but the last two thirds of the movie with Shaw gets better and better, and I do feel for her, and I think the acting is very excellent, and the character makes a lot more sense towards the end. But there's still a lot of logical gaps, some contradictions, and just very lazy writing throughout the whole film. And I understand they're just setting up a lot of mysteries, and Prometheus was supposed to have like 5 sequels, so a lot of things were going to be explained later. And if you dig around, there are a lot of videos that explain a lot of these gaps or mysteries or paradoxes. I understand he's doing like an homage to 2001. I understand all that. That is a very Kubrick film. It's not going to tell you everything. There's a lot of mysteries and ambiguities. But I think that they abused that privilege a little bit too much, and it just became very frustrating at the end of the day. So I was only bored in a few places, but it was far too many. And there were just so many places that the characters just act not even a little illogically. They act so radically, weirdly stupid just to move the plot along. I mean, there's this one case where a scientist, for no reason at all, exposes himself and the entire crew to a huge amount of danger. It's just jaw-droppingly stupid in certain points. So I'm like, I can't feel sorry for characters being destroyed by monsters if they're being really, really stupid. And the engineers are kind of ciphers. We don't really know why they're doing what they're doing, why they did what they did. And it just begins with a whole mystery, too. Like an engineer just commits suicide, and you're like, what? What's going on? And they never get back to it. So you're like, what was that about? And so there's just a lot of mysteries. I'm sure if you're a fanatic, you're going to be able to piece it together. But again, just from watching it the first time, I'm like, I don't get it. And what's so interesting, even the question it poses are like, well, who cares? I mean, Like, I'll just tackle one thing. Like, certain characters are obsessed with immortality. Immortality is not impossible. We're actually going to probably achieve it scientifically very soon. Like, David, as an android, can live forever. So, David could just keep experimenting on regenerating cells for thousands and thousands of years. When he perfects it, he could help the other character that wants immortality and just give him immortality. So, a lot of the plot, a lot of the premises, a lot of the philosophy and ontology doesn't really make sense. It's not coherent. And I understand that David's a little complex and he's not what he appears to be, but I just felt this is really a mystery and a road to nowhere, and I don't want to keep going with it. I think it was very strong in certain moments with the Idris Elba character. I mean, honestly, I can't even remember the character names. They just left no impression. Even Shaw, I would not even remember her name, but I looked up some videos to be fair to understand like what is going on here, because really, if you see just this film, you'll be utterly confused about what is going on. Where are we even in the timeline? You're just going to be guessing. Is this before Alien? Is it after Alien? Because we see a kind of a prototype of the alien in the final minutes. And those final minutes are very strong. I'm recommending the film. Final moments were pretty strong, but really, it's a long stretch of just nothingness on nothingness and just a lot of pretentious nonsense. But it is visually very arresting. There are some good performances. It's just very, very, very mixed. I just think this is a much weaker Ridley Scott film. I understand what he's trying to do. I give him a lot of points for trying to be creative and original. Again, the designs were very, very powerful, but again, this is just an incoherent mess. And I understand he's an artist, but again, being an artist doesn't mean you just do whatever you please. You do have to try to provide some kind of structure because they are doing some experimental stuff, but at the end of the day, this is still very conventional sci-fi. They're just doing it from a kind of interesting angle. I just don't think it worked out at the end of the day. So I'm going to be forced to give this a very severe 6.5. I still would recommend it, but come in with fairly low expectations because otherwise Prometheus will just be a very, very dragging mess and you're going to feel very angry. But I never got totally angry, but at certain points I'm just like, if this was not Ridley Scott, I would just turn this thing off and I just walk away because I'm like, what is the point of this? Why am I even watching this? This is just really, really a person self-obsessed with certain concepts and it's not going anywhere, at least in my opinion. Thanks for listening.